House Bill 2132, I believe it was, this past session. We've heard a lot about that, and it greatly improved the teacher retirement system, funding levels, unfunded liability. So the way I look at it, and maybe I'm wrong and tell me if I am, that's more of a on-paper mathematical, something that could be done at the stroke of a pen, fairly simple in the grand scheme of things. Is that the only simple thing that can be done? Are there more things like that that can be done? And if not, what are the hard things that need to be done to bring TRS up to 100% sooner?
Well, first off, I want to start with we will reach 100% funded. That is a very, very significant change as a result of the enactment of House Bill 2132. So, whereas a year ago we were looking at never reaching 100% funded, we are now in a situation with 2132 where in 22 years, if we meet our assumptions, we will be 100% funded. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a generation from now, but there is a definite light. And it's not a train coming at us. So it's, pensions are a lot easier than most people make them out to be. It's really a basic formula of the money that comes in the door has got to equal the money that goes out the door. And there are two ways that you can address if you have a structural imbalance like we've had historically in the teacher's retirement system. You either put more money in or you change your benefits so that there's less money going out. House Bill 2132 I would characterize as a reduction in the money that is going out. And that has been a significant increase or a significant change. Historically, there have been COLAs very frequently, which are cost of living adjustments, pay raises for our beneficiaries receiving a check, retired teachers. What 2132 did is it's saying that if there is going to be a COLA, then the legislature has to provide the additional funding to pay for that. And right now, if the legislature wanted to enact a 2% COLA for our clients, they would have to give us about $180 million. So we were able to we had an assumption built into our actuarial valuation that there would be a 2% every year cost of living adjustment. When we take that assumption out, because 2132 says the legislature is going to give us the money to pay for that if they pass it, we no longer have to assume that. That reduces the unfunded liability by almost $3 billion. Now, which side of the equation was that? Well, that's the less benefits going out side of the equation. It was the stroke of a pen, the changing of an assumption, but it does actually affect our clients in a very real way that we think the likelihood of cost of living adjustments in the future is significantly diminished than where we've been historically. Going forward, again, it's the same basic question. We either have to have more money coming in or less money going out. More money going in is a whole lot easier to talk about because we can talk about a number of revenue sources to try to get more money coming in, be it employer contribution, employee contribution even, or more revenue from the state in dedicated revenue. Money going out, that's going to be a lot more difficult to talk about, and the impact of that is going to be much farther down the road before we see that, because as one of the presenters today talked about, we have a case in Oklahoma where the legislature, it's very doubtful that they could change the benefit structure for those who are already vested in our system. So they could change it now for someone who starts in the future, but we're not going to see that reduced outflow for decades down the road. So that's kind of where we are. I'm encouraged by where we are, that we've got a funding period that is less than 30 years. I take that as a very good sign of financial health. Is your funding period greater than or less than 30 years? Ours is less than 30 years for the first time, possibly ever. And we are in a position where we will be getting the required contributions coming into the system as we need them to make that. So,
one of the assumptions is that the contributions from the state, in terms of the sales tax and income tax will continue. Do you ever foresee a time in either of our lifetimes when that won't be required?
Well, you know, it's very, very possible. If we step back and realize that the normal cost for the teacher's retirement system is 10.3%. So to pay for the benefits that a teacher is earning in this year of their career, on average, we need 10% of their salary contributed to the system. Okay? And if you step back and think about the contributions that are coming in currently, we get 7% of salary contributed by our teachers. School districts are paying 9.5%. Plus we get the state revenue. So between the employer and the employee, there's 16.5% of salary being contributed into the retirement system. The difference between the normal cost and the required contribution is due to our unfunded liability, which is caused by historical underfunding of the system. If we can get rid of that in 22 years, then we could bring our contributions down to that normal cost rate, say 10.5%, and maybe that dedicated revenue could be used for other sources then.
Okay. I've seen reports that still list Oklahoma as among the first states that could, essentially go bankrupt because of its pension system. In your opinion, assuming you've seen some of those, does that include the results of 2132? And if not, does that put Oklahoma in a better position?
The studies that I have seen that predict dire outcomes for pensions in Oklahoma do not include any of the impacts of House Bill 2132. And some of the projections that I've seen had us running out of money as early as 2017. Well, I have a very, very hard time with that. If you just step back from the projections that are being made by academics and ask yourself, okay, they're looking at the state as a whole. If we just look at the teacher's retirement system, which is the worst funded system in the state of Oklahoma, in fiscal year 2011, we paid out in benefits just over $1 billion. The revenue coming into our system was around $920 million. Okay, so we had we were right at $100 million gap between the money that came in and the money that we sent out. Okay, so assuming we never make a dime on our investment return, we've got $10 billion in the bank. Is that 100 years that we're going to be able to pay that difference in contributions? I think that's what the number works out to be, is 100 years. I don't see how we're going to run out of money in 6 years when we've got, even if you assume we don't get any contributions and we're paying out that $1 billion, we've got enough money in the bank to pay 10 years of benefits right now. How can I run out of money in 6 years? So I have a real problem with these academic studies that forecast gloom and doom. And all of those are going to be based on data that are old, and none of them are going to be able to talk about what's happening with House Bill 2132 and how that's changed our situation. But we'll see those survey results start coming out in probably 6 to 9 months, and I think you might see Oklahoma increasing our standing in terms of pension funding significantly.